Welcome back to part 2. I split the video into 2 parts because I wanted to do one carb teardown and one other one, and it's taken me about 3 days to get this done. So if you're here or watched the first video on the teardown of this carb and removal from the bike for a Mikuni on an ironhead, cool. This is how you reassemble it. Mikuni carb on an ironhead. Let's slap this back together. Carb cleaner dip, little storage tank. This actually closes, so we will take everything in here and dump it all in. Screw it, we'll throw that in too. Do I want to? That's gonna ruin the gasket. You know what, I'm gonna order a gasket. That shouldn't be too bad. So if this dissolves, oh well. Throw the body in here. Oh no, I'm only gonna be able to do half. Unless the carb will fit in here, but I doubt it. Just cut my hands, so. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Okay, we'll leave the body in and we'll just dump this in. Leave the lid off for tonight. I'll evaporate some of it, but that's okay. We're back at the house. All right, well, it's been 2-3 days, I don't remember. I had all the carb parts cleaned, and this has just been sitting here in one mess of carb that needs to get put back together. This will go quick. It's taken me a little bit longer because I've been moving a bunch of the other stuff around. So, new Evos in the garage. This is one that I bought earlier this year after that sporty chopper, the Evo chopper that just left, grenaded. So I ended up picking this up because we have a Paco frame upstairs. Hardtail Paco frame for an Evo that we're going to pretty much swap this over at some point. I don't know when yet. This bike runs perfect. I bought it super cheap, titled, running. Have not touched anything on this Evo yet. Just runs, rides, got a bunch of weird crap. I think I got that in one of the videos a ways back. I don't love the thing, but whatever, it works. We're going to slap this carb back together. We're not going to do any install. So I'm only going to put the carb together and leave it sitting on the bench because I do want to take apart this mag. I just put an order in and all of my parts showed up and I left them at the shop and forgot to grab them. We're going to pop this mag cover off. We're going to clean up the points. I'm not going to adjust the timing at all, but we're going to clean that up, double check the gap on here, and then re-gasket this mag. Right now, we got plenty of room to go through, pop this off, clean everything up, make sure that's good to go. I'm happy with how this runs as is. Tons of stuff to fix, but again, that'll be in the next videos. So part 1 of this video is just going to be the disassembly and cleanup. If you haven't seen it, that should be posted soon or now-ish, I think. By the time you see this, part 1 of the carb video will be done. Today, we're going to walk through this, get the carb put back together, and then we got to get into the rest of it. But before I start ripping parts off, I want to make sure the carb's dialed in and working. Then we'll address all the oil leaks and the geyser coming out the rear rocker box, but that involves pulling the heads. And if I'm going to do the rear, I might as well do the front. So still a lot to do on this. Minor stuff in the grand scheme of things. Could not be happier with this purchase thus far. So let me throw you guys up on the tripod. We'll start slapping this Mikuni back together. I'll walk you through it. I think I left most of the tools out and go from there. I don't know if these are going to fit, but I ordered a set of Jeff Bezos special Mikuni gaskets. It's supposed to fit a VM36 to 38. We'll see how that goes. If it works, cool. I did salvage the gasket from the original float and this was not leaking. So I'll line that up, see how this fits. If it works, cool. If not, we'll reuse this before I cut it off. Okay, so all the parts are laid out. I soaked the float bowl only on the inside. I didn't clean up the outside, so if you look at the body of the carb versus the body of the float bowl, I didn't dunk this because I didn't want the gaskets to go bad because I don't know if these are going to fit. So let's open up this box first. I think this is 12 bucks or something, 8 bucks, I don't know, it was cheap. So we'll check these gaskets for the float bowl first because that's going to kind of dictate what we do moving forward. The holes line up. Oh, that's backwards, but I think we'll be okay with that. Yeah, that should work just fine. Looks like it lines up. Let's see if it drops back in. So there's no guts in this carb yet, obviously, but let's see if it'll clear the spacer plate. So this will work if I trim a little bit around here, but so it definitely needs a little bit of trimming. It won't clear the bracket on here, so we're gonna leave. Let's try the other one. Might as well see if they're any different. No, they're the same. So these will work. Amazon special if you need one. This will work. You're just gonna have to trim out this little section. Since my gasket's intact, we're gonna reuse that. This also came with a needle and seat, which I'm gonna try and recycle the old stuff, but now I got a backup in case we run into issues. So we're gonna try this with all original parts. No promises on how that's gonna go, but we're gonna try it. If I gotta pull the carb off again, it's not that big of a deal. So with this, the only thing I didn't soak in carb clean is the atomizer, which, let's grab a rag here. Yeah, that's got a bunch of crap on it. These don't typically clog up, blow through them, but that's the atomizer. I don't know, there should be a number stamped on here somewhere. What do we got? 224 or an AA-5, which, I don't know, it is what it is. This is gonna drop in from the top and go down. It's threaded on one side for your jet, so this is gonna drop in through the body of the carb. Not overly worried about that yet. And then, if you notice on this, it is slotted right here. I'm gonna pitch that towards the throat of the carburetor. So that's gonna kind of go back and in. That's gonna shield. In my experience, I always thought that that's a two-stroke thing when it sticks up that high in the bore, but I'm not positive, so don't quote me on that. But that'll drop back in here like so. Then we'll find our main jet and our little plate. This guy here. I don't think this is the right setup exactly for a Harley. Don't quote me. It was running with this carb, so I'm putting it right back together the way it was. I'm not a Mikuni expert. I've never run one. I do have another one over here on the bench that I might grab as a reference. So if need be, I can open this up and verify some other stuff. Let's see here. Does the throat on this work? That's the real question. It's got a throttle cable on it still. Yeah. Float seized in here. Float's way seized in there. But it actually looks like this one's got the groove sticking up in the backside too. So before I take this apart any further, I think we're just gonna run with it that way. I think I got two Mikunis over there. I got a couple small ones too. But main jet is back in. Now we'll grab our pilot jet right here. This was the clogged one. When I held it up to the light, you couldn't really see through it all the way. I'm not gonna turn you guys around because you're set up in a good spot right now, but if I hold this up to the light, I can see right through that passage. Before, I could see a tiny bit of light, but it was a tiny, tiny bit coming through, which isn't good. So I think this should actually help us quite a bit. So we'll thread that into the pilot passage, or the idle jet passage right there, like so. Now I'll grab our needle and seat. Everything in here is super nice and clean after soaking in carb dip. So we'll drop our seat in here. And then the only other thing you could do, and you probably should do, grab a can of brake clean or carb clean with the little straw on it and spray it through all of these passages. I've done enough carbs with the carb dip that I'm confident that this worked. So, knowing my luck now, it's gonna come and bite me in the ass. But we got a 9mm for the needle seat. So slap this back on. And they're all brass parts, so you don't need to go hulking these things down. Just snug them up enough to grab, like so. And that's pretty much it on the bottom. We got our idle jet in, we got our main jet in, atomizer is reinstalled. The main jet threads into the atomizer, so that's good there. Nothing on the front that we're gonna change or alter. Then, let's turn it on its side. And take a look at our, do I want to do the needle next and floats? No, let's do our choke, or enrichener rather. Drop the spring, that's not good. So here's the enrichener with a spring. This will sit on here, and our enrichener is going to drop into the bore like so. And essentially what this is going to do is open up this bleed off passage here. This runs through the bore. This is the body of it, goes through to here. When we engage the enrichener, it opens up this circuit. And then when it's off, it pushes this back down. So that drops in there. I get a spring. And then the upper collar, which is going to kind of seat right here. And then we have a little plastic or rubber boot that goes over this once you get it threaded back in. But before we thread it all the way in, we need to grab our linkage. And this rides in between the linkage. So here's your choke linkage. This is going to grab onto the indent right here. So we'll drop this in. And it's got to kind of all go back together at once. So brass fitting, threaded fitting, goes through here. Then this is going to drop over the enrichener and the spring. And then while it's loose, we have all the adjustments in the world. So realistically, pull this out completely. And I need that rubber boot. Enrichener comes up through the boot. And we can push the enrichener up on the spring to bottom that out and engage it like that. Now we have one assembly. If we let it go, it drops back down. Then we're going to slide this into the bore and start threading this into the passage. Come on. Gets a little tight in here, but we'll make do. Getting it started on the first couple threads is going to be the hardest little part here, but once it's in, it should thread right in. There we go. So now it's started in. You're kind of fighting the spring pressure too, but we'll just walk this in quarter turn at a time. Again, brass parts, they don't need to be hulked down like crazy or anything like that. You just want to snug them up. So set this down on the face. Got a stubby little 12 mil. Snug, snug, snug. Just like that. And it's under spring pressure, so it's gonna keep trying to kick back down. This is where your fancy boot comes into play. This boot also functions as the lock. If they're really dried out or tight, you might want to lube these up a little bit, but if you spin them, they tend to grab a little bit better. Like so. Why is that not engaging? What did I miss here? Oh, yep. Whoops. Forgot the second bracket. My bad. Missed a piece. There's a second part to the linkage. Your detent to lock this in place. So we're going to pull this back out. Now we have the little bracket that I totally forgot about. This goes on top. Amateur hour over here, I tell you what. This is now going to drop in this way. So we have this little detent. This is what's going to lock you in place. I apologize. So I'll drop this back in. Yep, it's upside down. See the little dimple on this bracket right here? Hopefully that shows up. There's a dimple stamped into this bracket. That dimple is actually going to drop right into this hole on the bracket. Does that show up? I can't see. I'm looking up at you guys. So the dimple on this is going to line up with this. And we'll grab this, drop it through. Not the dimple, but the bottom side, the positive side where it's stamped through. And we'll cock this over much better like that. And jam this back in. And thread her in. Only human, I make mistakes too. Now, that floating plate is in there. And before I snug this down, I'm gonna push this tab down a little bit, like so. And there's your detent to keep that engaged. So basically it catches right on this little groove here, right there. And then you click it up, click it down, click it up, it engages right there. Make sure that's lined up proper before you go to torque the thing down, which we did. Go to snug, 8th turn, and now choke's off, enrichener's on. Off, on, off, on. Good there. Enrichener's now rehooked back up. So when you engage this, it pushes, it pulls this plunger up. So you have your bleed off passage here that runs along here, up. There's your plunger. And when you engage your enrichener, plunger goes up, which engages it into the circuit on the back body over here. If you wanted to know. If you're just slapping it back together, skip over the detailed parts, but that's kind of how that works. Then we have our float bowls and our floats. They're stamped up. Up means they go up. I think I talked about that already. So leave your ups up. Got little cottonwood fuzzies all over the place. We'll drop these down here. Then we got our actual adjuster for our float here. Then we have our needle. This is not the greatest, but I think it should be okay. I'm gonna try running it. Like I said, I do have the brand new ones. I don't mind pulling the carb off again if I need to. I have brand new ones right here. This is one of the few parts I would recommend replacing if you get actual ones. I don't know how much I trust Jeff Bezos stuff, so if I can make this work with the original stuff, we're gonna run with it. Not knocking it, but if you're gonna do it, I like, especially for the needle and seats, I like trying to get actual Mikuni parts. This was just a full kit. I didn't actually realize any of these came with it. I thought it was just a gasket, but that was a bonus. So we're gonna try the original needle. The other thing you can do is take some polish and a microfiber and just kind of wipe this off. That'll clean up the seat. And then same thing with the bowl. Take a little Mother's or whatever, aluminum or brass polish on a Q-tip, jam that in there, work it into the seat. It'll kind of polish itself out. But we'll drop our needle in. This wasn't leaking before, so I think it should be okay. Then we'll take our float adjuster pin. Keep your 90 degrees down here. And, oh, a little lock snap ring guy. This is gonna clip around the needle seat. It's got a big side and a small side. The small side goes up here. Come on. Fingers are too big for this stupid stuff. But this will snap onto the seat. This is gonna grab there. So that basically stops you from losing your needle. So that's as far as the needle will go right there. I don't have to worry about that dropping out with that little spring clip in there. Then we'll put our bracket in. And this is where you make your float adjustments. Right here, which, drop this, they're a little cocked. So I'm just gonna set these to about level. I'm eyeballing it, it's not gonna be perfect, but I want this to be pretty much level straight across with the body of the carb. There's definitely a spec to this too, but we weren't leaking. This should grant me enough fuel. So keep them level here. I'm only adjusting the outers a little bit. You really want to make this adjustment on the tang. So if you want to bring the float level up, bend it down. That'll give you less fuel. If you need more fuel, bend it up. So I'm gonna bend this up just a smidge right there. And the needle's still got some spring to it. You don't really want to bend to the outsides. You want the outsides to be level across this way, which we are looking pretty good there. Now, we're ready to throw the base on. There's nothing else to do in the bottom of the carb. So here's our float, or float bolt, with the floats pre-assembled here. They slide up and down nice and easy. No resistance, no drag there. Now I can drop this back together. This port, or this brass tube right here, this is your enrichener circuit. This is going to line up in the hole in the bottom of the float bowl. So line that one up first, and then just kind of jam this back together. Once it's on, you can flip it upside down. And then we got our screws here. I don't remember where these drains went. I guess we can use the old one as a reference, huh? We'll keep this out, just a reference. Off the top of my head, I don't remember where these ones went. So if this is sitting the same way as this carburetor, we're looking like this. There's a vent here, which is broken, and the overflow is on this corner. So if we go this way, we'll take a screw for a float bowl, put it onto the bracket, and just kind of lay these two out. Get this threaded in like so. And then I at least have a rough reference. And then the other little tab here, I should have one more somewhere, unless I lost one, might have. The other one goes on the other side front, which is fine. I don't need it right this second, but we'll get these started. Snug these up. There's two. Get one more naked one over here, and then the last one should have a little tab that I gotta look for real quick. I don't know if it's hiding underneath something. Not overly worried because I don't know if I'm hooking drains back up to, oh, here it is. Get the last one over here. This, don't drop your parts, be very careful about that. If you do, have a clean floor, that I don't, but try not to lose anything. This hose out of here. If I do put the hoses back on, come on. There we go. I broke the tab anyway. Those hoses are so dry rotted, but we'll leave this back on. Either way, so we'll thread this one back in. I'm not gonna do a crazy fine, well, no, we'll just snug these up all the way. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now our carb's essentially reassembled. The only things we have left now is our idle mixture screw here. So you got a little tiny spring that goes on the shaft of the idle mixture screw. This is what holds tension on this so this doesn't go flying out. Now on Mikuni's, if I remember correctly, notice the location of this idle mix screw. If this is your carburetor mounted on the bike, air comes in through here and then into the motor. Mixture screw is on the front side. If it's on the front, like this comes into one of these bleed off passages right here. As you turn this in, you are blocking air. Okay, so we're gonna go all the way seated on this gently. Right there, that's seated. I'm gonna go half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5. This is gonna have to get readjusted, but I'm gonna leave it at 1.5, 1 1/4, between 1 and 1.5. I haven't run Mikuni, so I'm gonna run it on the richer side. I haven't personally used a Mikuni on a, on this. Actually, you know what? We're at 1.5, I'm gonna go back to 1. I'm gonna leave this at 1 turn out on the mixture screw. And then the last part we got on this, our idle speed, which is just like a bullet end. All that this does when you turn it in or out is push this farther into the bore, and the slide's got a slight taper here that will raise and lower your idle. So for this one, all I gotta do is thread this in so there's some spring pressure on it. This we're gonna have to change once we get the slide back in, which I'm not hooking up until we actually get ready to put this back on the bike. So I'm gonna mount the carb with the cap off, and then we'll drop the slide and the needle back in here. I will take that apart, but I'm not gonna do it right now, just so we can check and see where the needle position is on this. Now I'm thinking about this. If I remember correctly, in on the idle mixture screw on a CV leans out the mixture. On this, the farther in I go, it actually richens up the mixture. The farther out I go is lean. How does that work? It's letting air through. So the farther out, it's letting more air, which should lean out the mixture. So in richens up your mixture, out leans out your mixture. Pretty confident in that. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I like learning from you guys too. You are a wealth of knowledge, and you guys help me out a ton. Hopefully as much as I'm helping you guys out on some of these. But there you go. This is Mikuni carb VM38 is back together and ready to go. I still gotta pop off these broken lines for the overflows and the drains, because these are all busted, and put a new vacuum nipple on right here, since these cracks will kill ya. Make sure you're running fresh rubbers on here. But there we have it. That's all we got for tonight. That wraps up carb video on this. And we got a ton more to do on the bike, just a matter of when we can get around to that, since it's busy and I'm running out of space and still haven't cleaned the garage. So I'm gonna go back in, relax, probably edit this video, and we will catch you tomorrow.